All right, the recording doesn't want to stop. That's okay. So I'm excited to introduce our next presenter, Rose Joseph. Rose graduated from UC Berkeley last May, where she studied political science and human rights. During her time at Berkeley, she became interested in the politics of land, food systems, and climate change. She's been working this year with the Tehama County Resource Conservation District in Red Bluff, California. So I am very excited to bring on Rose. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Eliza. Very excited to be here and present on my past 11 months. I think I need permission to share my screen.
I should have just gotten it. Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Let's see. Can everyone see my presentation?
Yes.
Awesome. Great. Okay, I'll get started. Thank you everyone for being here. I'm very excited to share. For the past 11 months, I've been working with the Resource Conservation District of Tehama County in Red Bluff, California. And I'll just do a little overview of Tehama County. So Tehama County sits right above Glenn County and right below Shasta County. The Sacramento River runs right through it. And on either side of the valley, there's forested land. So I've been working on a variety of projects in both forestry related work and agricultural related work for the past year or so. And I also wanted to do a quick land acknowledgement that the land on which the Tehama County RCD works is part of the ancient homeland and traditional territory of the Yana, Nomlaki, and Concow Maidu people. And we pay respect to these peoples past, present, and future, and their continuing presence in the homeland and throughout the diaspora. And we honor the resilience of these peoples, cultures, and languages in the face of genocide and displacement. So I'll take you through some of the main categories that I was working on. I mentioned agriculture and forestry already. I was also able to participate in a lot of training opportunities through GrizzlyCorps. I also assisted with education and outreach at the Resource Conservation District and general organizational capacity building. I made a little word map of all of the different types of projects that I was working on, and it gets quite full very quickly. So I'll just be taking you guys through a few highlights today. So agricultural projects. The main projects that I was working on within the agricultural lens was the Mobile Irrigation Lab, which is this photo illustrates. The planting mitigation projects that I worked on with my supervisor, Kevin, who's in this photo with me, and some GIS mapping projects, mostly for the Mobile Irrigation Lab. The Mobile Irrigation Lab is a free irrigation efficiency program. It's one of the largest programs in the state. I think only one of two programs in the state that offer free assistance like this to growers. Basically what it is you go through and you test various irrigation lines and generally assess the overall quality of the irrigation in an orchard. And then afterwards, we provide recommendations for how to improve the irrigation systems or irrigation efficiency. So I provided technical support for this program, which means I learned how to measure flow pressures and I learned how to map out these systems both by hand and also using GIS. I created promotional material for the Mobile Irrigation Lab and also some promotional material for the California Almond Board. And that was a good opportunity because I enjoy video editing and that kind of ties back in with some of the educational and outreach stuff that I was also able to do with the RCD. One big skill that I learned while working at the Mobile Irrigation Lab is how to dodge sprinklers. The sprinkler system has to be on while we're working, so you do wear a full rain suit, and so that was fun to learn. Yeah, and I think one of the main things that I gained about working with this program is just a better general understanding of water efficiency, what it means to be water efficient, what it means to better a irrigation system, what it takes to coordinate these visits with farmers, and general conversations with people in the agricultural space about changes that they want to make versus the barriers that exist to those changes. So that was definitely amazing opportunity to talk with people and get a variety of perspectives on this work. I also learned a little bit about orchard agriculture in general, what it takes to harvest and grow walnuts and almonds. And then I learned about a lot of challenges that face those who are interested in implementing regenerative agriculture practices, and specifically the challenges that many farmers have financially to transition over into those practices. So that was a very enlightening experience. Another program that I helped out with was our Mitigation Planting program. And we have a few different grants that are in partnership with Caltrans. And when Caltrans creates a highway or some kind of infrastructure and they disrupt native plants, they're mandated to mitigate for those disruptions through hiring an organization like us. And we plant our own native plants either directly by the site or somewhere else. And this is a great opportunity to learn a little bit about combating invasive species, what it takes to care for these plants as they go through infancy, especially in a very hot and dry environment in Tehama County. And so I did a little bit of maintenance of these planting sites. This photo was taken in the spring. And so we'll mow these sites in the spring, and then in the fall, we'll do weeding and hand removal of star thistle if we can. And then also just general monitoring of the plants. So you go through a few times a year and assess their overall health. So that was a cool project to participate in as well. I would say the bulk of the projects that I worked on in the past year were forestry projects, mainly in the tune of prescribed burning, general grant and programmatic assistance, defensible space assistance, and then general forestry trainings. And this photo is from a prescribed burn that I attended last spring. Defensible space assistance was a really large portion of my term of service. The RCD of Tehama County offers free and cost share defensible space treatments for members of the community that are handicapped, that are low income, and that are elderly. And so these are services that we provide to the community for people who really physically cannot create defensible space for themselves. So it's a very gratifying program to work with. I assisted with chipping, weed whacking, brush cutting, and used a chainsaw occasionally to clear brush, limb and trim trees, and take down trees, smaller trees that were hazardous to people's homes. And this resulted in safer residences and safer communities and more wildfire resilient communities in rural areas. Most of the places that we were working in were fairly far out from the town of Red Bluff. So these are in WUI areas, wilderness urban interface areas. And I'll show you some photos of the before and afters in a few slides. And they're really dramatic. And to be able to see the difference that you can make at a person's home in a few days was really gratifying. It's very labor intensive work. I think it gave me a real perspective for what it takes to implement these programs. We all have ideas of what it means to create more wildfire safe communities, but in reality, it takes a lot of labor to make that happen. So it gave me definitely a lot of perspective on the amount of effort that it takes. And I also learned how to operate some heavy machinery, which was just generally fun. Here's some photos of defensible space treatments. I'd say the majority of my time was spent dragging brush. So I got pretty strong pretty quickly. And I also was able to see a lot of cool things while working in the field because we were working all over Tehama County, whether that means a homeowner's dog or some awesome turkey tail mushrooms on a stump. It was always great to be working outside. And here are the before and after pictures that I mentioned. These are just two different sites, but you can see the really dramatic difference. Both of these sites were treated in one day. And it's just one photo of the larger sites generally. So it's a very dramatic difference from before and after. And here's some testimonials that we get back from people in the community. The first one says, a very big thank you for the work that you all did, for being kind enough to help us out. The job that was done in 3 days would have taken my daughters and I about 2 to 3 years to complete because of my disabilities. The work that the team did makes us feel safer. We received a lot of notes like this, and it just goes to show how valuable a program like this is for the community, especially a program that can be free for people who really can't afford to do it. Another aspect of my forestry work that I really enjoyed participating in was prescribed burning. And this is something that I entered GrizzlyCorps with really zero experience in. And I had a lot of interest in it right off the bat. Specifically, prescribed burning is the idea that you're using controlled fire or good fire to achieve ecological or fuels reduction objectives. And so I went from really 0 to 100. I was able to build general knowledge about prescribed burning and prescribed burning practices, and then specifically train in that knowledge and then implement hands-on experience and practice. So I was able to put fire on the ground. That photo is of me holding a drip torch and a pitchfork, which are both very important tools while burning. I received education on operational and fire effects training, which basically means what is the command structure? And how do you react in situations where the fire maybe isn't doing exactly what you want it to do? Who are you communicating with? And then fire effects training, which is what does the fire behavior look like? And how does that indicate whether or not we're staying in our temperature and moisture prescription? So both of those things can teach you a lot about what it takes to really pull off a prescribed burn. And there's a lot of planning and effort that goes into it. Participating in prescribed burns and also learning a lot about them showed me a lot about the bottleneck of abilities in California in implementing prescribed fire. It's a tool that definitely needs to be upskilled, but there are a lot of challenges in making that happen. So I was able to understand that both on a practical and theoretical level. And I was also able to promote the use of prescribed fire within my resource conservation district. As I became more interested in it, I was able to kind of expand that interest on a whole organizational level. And so now we have quite a few prescribed burning projects coming up. So that's really exciting to have been able to encourage my organization to get more involved. Here's some photos from different prescribed burns that I attended. As you can see in the upper left photo, what you're shooting for is really a fire that's low to moderate intensity. And you can see the flame lengths are very small. And that's what you're kind of going for. So it was very interesting for me to learn what kinds of fires are useful and what kinds of fires are we looking for. I think many people who don't know that much about prescribed fire have this idea about what fire is in California, and in reality, it looks very different than I think what a lot of people fear that it looks like. Bottom left photo was a picture of my boots that burned after I walked through a fire. So I learned the importance of having the right gear pretty early on. And there's just some other photos that I thought were cool and indicate kind of what it's like to be on the ground. I was also able to help out with quite a few grants and project proposals, and specifically in the forest health and fuels reduction world. So I was able to assist with the research and editing of these grant proposals, which basically helped to build funds for our organization. Resource conservation districts are entirely grant funded. So the grant funding process, the process of applying and receiving these grants, is a huge part of the work that our CDs do. So to be able to understand that aspect of the work and also assist with it was very gratifying. And also to work with CAL FIRE CCI grants, which are carbon credit funded grants. It's something that I learned about through my political science education and was actually able to get involved in on the ground. So that was really interesting too. And I think generally it was a huge learning opportunity to understand what it takes to conceptualize and then implement a fuels reduction or forest health project. How those ideas are created, how they are shared, and how this process is very collaborative. So that was fascinating as well. And all of these lessons that I learned while helping out with the grants and programmatic aspects were reinforced through field trips in the field. All of these photos are from the Mendocino National Forest, which was burned in the August Complex fire. As you can see, the date was November 4th, and the August Complex ended, I think, just a few days before this. They mostly contained it. So while we were driving through, there were still stumps burning. On the right and left-hand sides, you can see before and after pictures of areas that we had treated or not treated. And as you can tell, there's a huge difference in some of these areas. The middle photo is a treatment that we had done that was very successful. You can see exactly where the fire stopped right before the treated area towards the top. And these field trips also reinforce what kinds of practices are useful, what kinds of practices aren't useful. It was a really interesting case study. So the field trips were always very valuable in reinforcing some of the things that I was learning. And this is a photo that, the top photo is an old photograph that was taken in the early 1900s in Mineral, California. And the bottom photo is of Mineral, California. And I think this juxtaposition is really interesting because this is a forest that has changed a lot in the past 100 years. And so it's kind of a guidepost for what we can go for in the future. We're never going to achieve the forests of the past, but I think it's really important to understand what our forests used to look like. And for everyone, even the general public, to conceptualize that the forests that we have right now are not the healthy forests that they could be. I also helped with organizational capacity building at my organization. And what that looked like was a few different things. The major thing that I did for my organization was I created a new website, and I transferred hundreds of documents and pieces of information from an old and largely defunct website to a new, bright and shiny, visually pleasing and easily accessible website. And that was an amazing process because I think I actually learned the most about my organization and what we do through this process. I was able to really dig deep into our programs and then also summarize them for the general public and make everything digestible and easy to understand. And then another project that I participated in collaboration with Grace Ferguson, who is another GrizzlyCorps fellow who is serving at the Yolo County RCD, was the Sacramento Valley RCD Regional Collaboration Capacity Assessment. A big word salad, but basically what that means is that we were helping 8 different RCDs within the Northern Sacramento Valley region understand their capacity assessment strengths and weaknesses. So we interviewed 8 different RCDs on their strengths and gaps, funding and assets, special programs, and other factors on that list. And then we made a cohesive document that basically summarized the strengths and weaknesses and the needs and the goals for all of these RCDs in the region. And that document hopefully will be used in the future by RCDs to better collaborate, understand what projects are happening, what kinds of projects and programs are each RCD is interested in, and just make collaboration easier within the region. And so that was very cool, and it was a great networking opportunity as well to meet people and understand what work they were doing and why they were doing it. I also helped with education and outreach at my RCD. I was able to assist in last fall with outdoor Galore science kits. We put together 622 science kits that were distributed to students from 27 different schools. And this was happening really in the throes of COVID last fall when things were getting pretty bad. And so it was really amazing to be able to give enriching educational material to young students and their families in a time when everyone was pretty burnt out from Zoom school. And parents were having a hard time finding things for their kids to do. So I feel like this was really a positive project with real impact on the community in Tehama County. And then I also helped, well, I was the person who planned and executed the creation of another 100 kits for a Christmas drive. So that was really gratifying too, to be the one who led and saw through a program. And then I also helped coordinate the Wild and Scenic Film Festival in Red Bluff. This is a festival that was created by the Southern Yuba Rivers Citizens League in Grass Valley or Nevada City. And it's since grown across the continental United States, and I think it's international as well. And so Red Bluff, through the Tehama County RCD, every year hosts a regional wild and scenic film festival event. And this year I helped pull it off. So I did a lot of the coordination and planning and background work to make it happen. And that was really fun to see it through. And we had a very successful event, even though it was virtual. So it was a great experience. And then I did some post-grad Zoom school. So I did a lot of webinars, which was really amazing because one of my goals entering GrizzlyCorps was to go from a largely social science background and understanding of the world to a focus that had a lot more scientific basis. And I was able to do that in a lot of different categories, all the way from grazing to cover cropping to biochar, more regenerative agriculture focused topics, to traditional ecological knowledge and forest stewardship and hydrology. I participated in the UC Extension Forest Stewardship training course, which is something that another fellow, Kestrel, helped plan. So these were all really enriching opportunities and something that I would have only been able to do through GrizzlyCorps. So some final takeaways. I left this year with really an immeasurable amount of knowledge, real knowledge in both through hands-on experience and field work to more conceptual knowledge about ideas of ecology and forestry and agriculture. I was really grateful to have a team at the RCD that supported my growth. If I had an idea or a crazy training opportunity that popped up, and I said, I want to go to a prescribed burn in 2 days, and I won't be able to access the internet for a few days. Will you let me go? And they always said yes. So that allowed me to participate in some really amazing things. I had the opportunity to learn some project management skills. So the team really believed in me and gave me a task and just let me run with it. And that was amazing to have a lot of autonomy and be able to oversee projects and really see them through. Like I mentioned, I had a lot of training opportunities, both in professional development skills and in gaining technical skills. And all of these gave me just a really wide introduction to natural resources management for a person who has really no background in it. Additionally, I met some professional development goals that I created for myself, 3 main ones, which were to A, broaden my environmental and ecological knowledge, B, create a portfolio of education and outreach content that I created during my time at the RCD, and 3, to gain technical skills such as GIS, monitoring, and general data wrangling. And I just want to close out by showing some really cool views that I was able to see during my time at the RCD, things that I would only have been able to do while doing field work and while working where I worked. So this is a photo looking over a valley in Tehama County with the chipper right next to it. And that was during a Defensible Space Assistance Day. This is a photo of a tortoise that I met while I was doing a prescribed burn. So that was a fun surprise. This is a photo of the Klamath River. I took this photo on the way to finishing out my basic wildland firefighter training. It's just a gorgeous area. This was a training that was done with the Karuk tribe. And then this is a photo of a meadow right near Mineral, California. It was just a beautiful day, and I feel very lucky that I was able to see views like this during the past 11 months. It's really been an amazing experience. So thank you to everyone who made it possible. Here's a nerdy photo of me in my defensible space, protective safety glasses. And I welcome any questions or comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rose. Again, please feel free to put questions into the chat, the Q&A, or raise your hand and we can unmute you. Well, a question I have for you, Rose, is what recommendations do you have for the upcoming fellows in general this year, and in particular the fellow that you have coming to Tehama RCD next year?
Yeah, I think it's so important to just be flexible. I think working with any organization, but specifically a resource conservation district that's grant funded, you never know what's going to be happening a week from now or 2 weeks from now. And so it's important just to be flexible and really take everything as it comes and be enthusiastic about the changes. I think for me, there were things that I never expected that would happen that ended up being some of the most enriching parts of my experience. And I was able to find them enriching because I embraced them with open arms. So I think flexibility and just a willingness to learn and be open to opportunities and put yourself out there and ask questions and spend time in the field. Definitely spend as much time in the field as you can if that's possible with your placement.
So another question that came in is, what lessons can rural resource defense districts teach urban centers?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's difficult to say necessarily because the considerations between a very rural area and a very urban area are super different. I think what maybe this is just a more general conceptual idea, but I think maybe what urban centers can understand through the work that more rural resource conservation districts do is how everyone benefits from and is subject to the health or the loss of our natural resources. And so what people do in cities impacts the resources that are available in rural areas. Fires that happen in rural areas will still impact people in urban areas through smoke. And so we're all connected, even though we might be in different regions, even though the work that's happening in one area might not always directly affect the life of someone that's happening in another, especially when it comes to combating climate change. We're all in this work together. And so I think remembering that is really important.
Great. Well, have lots of positive comments flowing in, but no more questions. So thank you so much, Rose. It's been such a pleasure to have you as part of GrizzlyCorps. Perfect.